vielleicht nur aus dem Russland.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan John.
And I'm Hem Korsar, and on the show today, in a concerning sign of an escalation and a larger war, Israeli warplanes flattened the Iranian consulate in Damascus, killing at least 7 people, including senior commanders of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps. What does this mean for the already tense situation in West Asia? We'll explore this on the show today.
Also on the show, 5 aid workers killed in an Israeli attack. This following the delivery of humanitarian aid in central Gaza's Deir al-Balah. This included an Australian, Polish and UK foreign national as well, along with a Palestinian aid worker. All this and a lot more right here on World DNA in the next 60 minutes. Let's get you started with the headlines.
Suspected Israeli warplanes bomb Iran's embassy in Syria in a strike that Iran says killed 7 of its military advisors, including 3 senior commanders.
شو هاي شنبوم بكل الايام
Israel's Red Sea port city of Eilat came under an aerial attack that caused no casualties, says the IDF. Iranian-backed armed group in Iraq, the Islamic Resistance, claims responsibility.
At least 5 employees of the World Central Kitchen in non-governmental organization, including foreigners, were killed in an Israeli airstrike on Gaza, as per the Hamas-run Gaza government.
North Korea fired a suspected intermediate-range ballistic missile into the sea off its east coast, claims South Korea's military, in a move that sparked immediate condemnation from the Prime Minister of Japan.
India's top court seeks responses from the poll panel and the centre on a plea seeking a complete count of the slips and polls, and as opposed to the practice of verification of only 5 randomly selected EVMs.
Adidas bans football fans from buying Germany football kits customized with the number 44. This after concerns were raised that they resemble the symbol used by World War II era Nazi SS units.
All right, tensions are escalating in West Asia. According to reports, suspected Israeli warplanes have bombed Iran's embassy in Syria.
Now, Iran says the bombing killed 7 of its military advisors, including 3 of its senior commanders, and the bombing marks a major escalation in a war pitting Israel against its regional adversaries.
According to Iranian state media, one of those killed was Mohammad Reza Zahidi, a senior commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps. Tehran believes he was the target of the attack.
We told you before, Zionist entity knows very well that such crimes and any kind of crimes will not remain without response.
Iran says their response to the attack will be decisive. Moreover, Tehran is not alone in issuing a warning to Israel. Lebanon's Iran-backed Hezbollah group also warned Israel that they will pay the price for killing high-level Iranian Revolutionary Guards commander. In Damascus, the militant group says that the crime will not pass without the enemy receiving punishment and revenge.
On the other hand, hours after the strikes in Damascus, Israel Defense Forces spokesperson accused Iran of orchestrating a drone attack on Israel's naval base in Elad.
Tonight, an unmanned aerial vehicle made and directed by Iran hit a naval base in Eilat. This is a very serious incident. Minor damage was caused to the facility and there were no casualties in the incident. We are investigating it in order to draw lessons and improve our defense capabilities in the area and its surroundings.
The Islamic resistance in Iraq, an Iran-backed group of militias, said in a statement that it had attacked a vital objective in Israel using appropriate weapons. It did not offer further details. While Israel's closest ally, the United States of America, has said that they are looking into reports about the strikes in Syria. The White House says President Joe Biden is aware of reports of Israeli airstrikes in Damascus.
So, look, I'm aware of the reports. Our team is looking into it, so I'm not going to get ahead of anything just yet. But obviously, we're aware of the reports, and our team is looking into it. I'm just not going to.
In Iran, protesters burned Israeli and American flags as they gathered in Tehran to condemn the attack on the Iranian embassy.
It's considered part of a country's territory. There should definitely be a firm response to this action. For us to sit quietly is not the right thing to do at all, because it would dare to target more positions, more assets and people of Iran, and may tell itself why not Tehran next time, and fitting revenge must be taken.
All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by John Erath, Senior Policy Director for the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation. He is joining us from Washington, D.C. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Thank you very much.
Now, sir, to begin with, Israel, it's not officially commented, but there are reports quoting sources which do say that some top IDF officers have in fact said that it was an Israeli strike. Do you reckon this marks a major escalation in the war between Israel and its regional adversaries?
Unfortunately, this is not the first time that there have been attacks going back and forth between Israel and Iran. Israel has taken out Iranian commanders and nuclear scientists in the past, and Iran has responded with terror attacks against Israeli interests. So unfortunately, this is yet another chapter in a very long and tragic story. There are, however, two things about this that do quite bother me. The first is it appears to have been a deliberate targeting of a diplomatic facility, the Iranian consulate in Syria. Diplomats are there to promote peace and dialogue, and if they become targets of aggression, they can't do their job, and hopes of peace are that much less. The second is that apparently the cover of the diplomatic facility was being used for military purposes by Iran, which is part of the same problem. If it is not being used as a diplomatic facility, then that's an abuse of the diplomatic privilege.
I also wanted to get your thoughts on this. And now we have seen strikes between Israel and Iran. Iran obviously responds with its proxies in the region. Israel has been going out against its military installations. This time they've also targeted the embassy there. How do you feel Iran is going to respond to this? They've already mentioned that they are going to take a decisive response. How do you see this one coming back from Iran's side?
This is fairly normal rhetoric from the Iranian side. I expect that there will be further terror incidents. I expect that Iran would use proxies the way it has before, particularly Hezbollah and Hamas, to conduct some attacks against Israeli interests. I don't have any special insight as to where and when this might happen, but I would not be surprised if it does.
All right, sir. Of course, just for more clarity on this, you've of course touched on this already. Most Iranian proxies in the region are already involved. How far do you see this conflict expanding going from here? You say that this is just another chapter. How many more of these are we going to see?
If I knew that question, I'd be in line for a Nobel Prize. The story is very long and very tragic, and I don't think we're nearly at an end to it.
Right.
It's also difficult to see how much more it can expand and how much worse it can get. I greatly fear there are going to be more lives lost and more tragedy in the region before we see any improvement.
All right. Well, Mr. John Arel, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA with your insights on this. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
All right, we move further from here. At least 5 employees of the World Central Kitchen NGO, including foreigners, were killed in an Israeli airstrike on Gaza.
Now, as per Gaza officials, those killed in the incident in Deir al-Balah included citizens of Poland, Australia and Britain, as well as 1 Palestinian. Israeli forces left Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City on Monday after a 2-week operation. Special forces detained hundreds of suspected Palestinian militants and left a wasteland of destroyed buildings with access to Gaza's biggest hospital severely restricted. The Israeli and Palestinian versions differed sharply.
The video taken by the WHO in Gaza City showed dozens of people standing around wrecked structures. A section of the courtyard has been turned into a mass makeshift grave. Palestinian officials called the raid on a hospital treating severely wounded patients a war crime. And on the other hand, Israeli officials said special forces units conducted a targeted strike against a Hamas stronghold deliberately located among vulnerable civilians. Thousands of Palestinians, 6,200 according to the Israeli military, had been sheltering in the complex, one of few locations in the north with some access to power and water.
A Hamas official said Israelis killed 400 Palestinians in and around the hospital, including a woman doctor and a son, also a doctor, and put the facility out of action. Hamas and medics deny any armed presence in hospitals. Israeli military spokesperson Daniel Hagari said the site had been turned into a major operating center by the Palestinian groups Hamas and the Islamic Jihad.
Israeli officials agreed to take Washington's concerns about a planned offensive in Rafah into account. A joint statement was issued after a virtual meeting with U.S. officials on alternative ways to root out Hamas militants in southern Gaza. The 2.5-hour meeting led by top U.S. and Israeli officials concluded with a plan for follow-up talks in person as early as next week. There was no immediate signs that the U.S. and Israeli negotiators reached any agreement on the path forward in Rafah.
France proposed a draft United Nations Security Council resolution that seeks options for possible UN monitoring of a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. The draft resolution includes proposals to help the Palestinian Authority assume responsibility.
This draft resolution deals with the most pressing matters. It calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza without a time limitation. It also demands the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. It condemns the terrorist attacks by Hamas that took place on October 7, and it demands an immediate and full humanitarian access.
Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi visited Jordan and met King Abdullah. They discussed the negotiations to secure an immediate ceasefire in the war, and now in its 6th month, and the release of all hostages kidnapped by Hamas.
Moving on now, as the United States gears up for its presidential elections, border security is one sensitive issue that has created a political divide.
Well, of course, that divide is between the Democrats and Republicans. Now, the influx of migrants in the United States has put President Joe Biden in a politically threatened situation. The Democrats portray the situation as a policy dispute that Congress can fix, whereas Biden's 2024 Republican opponent, Donald Trump, has been constantly sharpening his attacks on the issue that has been a central part of his political message for almost a decade. In recent days, Trump has raised his anti-immigrant rhetoric.
But in a potentially worrying sign for Biden, Trump's message appears to be resonating with key elements of the Democratic coalition that Biden will require to win over this November.
Most of the US citizens are not content with the way President Biden has been handling the worrying situation. While Biden is optimistic about his re-election campaign, his approval rating tells a completely different story. And according to a new poll by the AP and Knox Center for Public Affairs Research, roughly 2/3 of Americans now disapprove of how Biden is handling border security. This includes about 4 in 10 Democrats, 55% of black adults, and 73% of Hispanic adults.
Immigration will almost certainly be one of the central issues in November's election, with both sides spending the next 6 months trying to paint the other as wrong on border security. The White House has also mulled a series of executive actions that could drastically tighten immigration restrictions, effectively going around Congress after it failed to pass the bipartisan deal Biden endorsed. Now, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report on how the border crisis is posing a major problem for President Biden's re-election campaign. Listen to this.
The political divide over immigration may determine the outcome of the next presidential election. President Biden's framing of the issue as a policy dispute that Congress can fix isn't resonating with the American people. Former President Donald Trump and his supporters see it as a crisis that threatens national security and identity. And now polls show that most Americans, even some Democrats, agree with that. Latest polls show that 2/3 of Americans disapprove of President Biden's handling of border security. 40% of Democrats, 55% of black adults, and 73% of Hispanic adults disapprove. 45% of Americans describe the situation at the border as being a crisis, while 32% say that it is a major problem. The political landscape on immigration is complex and contentious, with deep divisions and concerns on both sides.
Susan further explains how multiple U.S. states are pushing for tougher immigration policies. Listen to this.
Iowa passed a bill similar to the one in Texas that allows state law enforcement to arrest illegal immigrants who were previously deported or denied entry into the United States. The bill makes it a crime for migrants to enter Iowa if they have a history of deportation or were denied entry into the country. While the Texas bill is in court, we're increasingly seeing states take matters into their own hands when it comes to immigration policy in lieu of leadership from the White House.
All right, in Russia, it's continuing to pound Ukraine. In the past 2 weeks, Moscow has increased its bombardment of power and gas infrastructure across Ukraine.
Just last week, Russia struck electricity substations in southern Ukraine, which resulted in power outages in the Odessa region. Now, Ukraine's national grid company says that recent Russian attacks have caused damage to the power system, but a total collapse is unlikely. Most of Ukraine's electricity is generated by 3 nuclear power plants, but thermal and hydro generation are key to balancing the system during consumption peaks. However, the war has reached a point where Ukrainian soldiers are complaining about the lack of weaponry. As Russia continues to push through the front lines, Ukrainian soldiers positioned in the Donetsk region are finding it difficult to hold their ground. Soldiers of 93rd Brigade say they have fired most of howitzers at enemy's positions along that 1,000-kilometer front line. Ukrainian troops say for every shell that Ukraine fires along the front line, Russia fires between 5 or 6 in return.
The situation is bad. We have few shells. There were few of them before, and now we've got next to nothing. What we are given is enough for just half an hour of work at most, for one mission only. It's not like it was before, when we had 3 or 4 combat loads of ammunition, which was up to 100 shells per day. Now we are given just a few.
2 months ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin confirmed that sea-based Zircon missiles are being used in the battle. He described the Zircon as part of a new generation of unrivaled arms systems. These sea-based Zircon missiles have a range of 1,000 kilometers and travel 9 times faster than the speed of sound. The Kiev administration has stated that since the start of 2024, the city has been hit by 6 other types of missiles. Well, China developed a civil manned airship, made its first ferry flight. Him gets you all the details. Over to you, Win.
Right, Shivan, thank you so much for that. And now, China's independently developed AS-700 civil manned airship made a successful maiden ferry flight in the Hubei province. The first air vehicle is scheduled to be delivered by the end of this year, and here's all you need to know about it. The pilot of the ferry flight stated that the AS-700, it has the ability to take off and land vertically in a narrow field, and it's more mobile and flexible than other types of airships. Chief designer of the airship project said the flight fully verified the AS-700's flight communication and facility loading. The foundation has been laid for subsequent longer distance and longer endurance flights. Since the AS-700 obtained the type certificate in China last year, the company, it has received intent orders for 18 units of the airship. The customers are mainly related with low-altitude sightseeing tourism sector as of now. The AS-700 has a maximum capacity carrying 10 persons, including a pilot. The single capsule manned airship's maximum takeoff weight is 15 over 4,100 kilograms. It boasts of a maximum flight range of 700 kilometers and a maximum endurance of 10 hours. So that's what we know about the AS-700 as of now. And with that, it's time now for a short break. But don't go anywhere. Lots lined up for you on the other side of World DNA. Beginning with an alleged cyber attack that shakes up Russia's prison infrastructure to its core. A group of hackers claim to have breached the Russian prison systems database. We'll get you all you need to know about this on the other side of the short break.
Also on the other side, foreign investors flood the South Korean equity markets, largely driven by bets on artificial intelligence, which has propelled foreign ownership of the Korea Composite Stock Price Index to a record high. Come right back after the break. All this and a lot more right here on World DNA.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
The biggest democratic exercise on the planet ever. Decoding the multiple colors of this multi-dimensional, multi-layered spectacle. WION deciphers the images and the hues, sifts real performance from rhetoric and noise, claims and counterclaims, populist pitches and hidden truths, untangling, unraveling this celebration of democracy.
On the next episode of World of Africa, Democracy wins as Senegalese elect their first youngest president in Diomaye Faye, who now succeeds Macky Sall, who had previously imprisoned him, and firebrand opposition figure Ousmane Sonko. Faye pledges to govern with humility. Chocolate prices to keep rising as West Africa's cocoa crisis deepens. Top growers in Ivory Coast and Ghana are facing catastrophic harvests resulting in record-high cocoa prices. And tropical cyclone Gamani sweeps across the island of Madagascar, killing dozens and displacing thousands more. Watch World of Africa at these times on WION World is One.
Economic turmoil and global unrest have cast a shadow over President Joe Biden's approval ratings.
The rockets are continuing to be fired by Hamas in Gaza, although at a slower rate than previously.
So, right now, we are with the volunteers from the Aleppo municipality. They are still trying to go to the rescue for the people they can find out.
India has emerged as a major diplomatic force at the world stage.
The rising cost of living in Nigeria continues to impact citizens from all walks of life.
The citizens of Gujarat witnessed a mega roadshow here in the city of Ahmedabad.
China is South Africa's largest trading partner for 134 years straight.
A domestic aircraft carrying 72 people on board crashed in Pokhara city in central Nepal.
165 injuries have been moved, 61 people are confirmed dead, and rescue operations continue around me.
After receiving an entire season's rainfall in a span of 48 hours, Chennai city has literally been brought to its knees.
For WION, World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Vielleicht nur als Sympathisant.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the goats in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
On the next episode of World of Africa, democracy wins as Senegalese elect their first youngest president in Diomaye Faye, who now succeeds Macky Sall, who had previously imprisoned him, and firebrand opposition figure Ousmane Sonko. Faye pledges to govern with humility. chocolate prices to keep rising as West Africa's cocoa crisis deepens. Top growers in Ivory Coast and Ghana are facing catastrophic harvests resulting in record-high cocoa prices. And tropical cyclone Gamani sweeps across the island of Madagascar, killing dozens and displacing thousands more. Watch Wild of Africa at these times on WION World is One.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. We have, of course, tracked so far on the show where things stand in West Asia. In the latest, it's been mentioned that an Iranian consulate in Damascus was entirely flattened. This has also included casualties, which also includes senior commanders of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's corps. Where do things stand? How will this play out going forward? That is, of course, something that remains to be seen, and we'll continue to track all the developments on that.
There are major concerns on how this is going to expand even further in the West Asian region. All that and a lot more right here on World DNA. In the next half hour, we'll be bringing you lots more from the world of business, technology, sports, entertainment. Stay tuned. This is World DNA. Let's get you started with the headlines at this hour.
Suspected Israeli warplanes bomb Iran's embassy in Syria. Iran says it killed 7 of its military advisors, including 3 senior commanders.
Israel's Red Sea port city of Eilat came under an aerial attack that caused no casualties, says the IDF. Iranian-backed armed group in Iraq, the Islamic Resistance, claims responsibility.
At least 5 employees of the World Central Kitchen, a non-governmental organization, including foreigners, were killed in an Israeli airstrike on Gaza, says the Hamas-run Gaza government.
North Korea fired a suspected intermediate-range ballistic missile into the sea off its east coast, claims South Korea's military, in a move that sparked immediate condemnation from the Prime Minister of Japan.
India's top court seeks responses from the poll panel and the centre on a plea seeking a complete count of the slips and polls, as opposed to the practice of verification of only 5 randomly selected EVMs.
Adidas bans football fans from buying Germany football kits customized with the number 44. This after concerns were raised that they resemble the symbol used by World War II era Nazi SS units. Tax authorities in India would not take any coercive action against the principal opposition party till the end of the upcoming general elections. Now, that was the announcement which came in.
Right, the Income Tax Department has assured the Supreme Court of India that it will take no steps to recover the dues from Congress party till the end of the polls. The income tax had served notice to the Congress for the recovery of approximately 35 billion rupees or $420 million. The Supreme Court was hearing the appeals filed by the Congress challenging the demands made by the IT department. The court recorded the IT department's assurance and posted the matter for the next hearing on the 24th of July.
The fresh tax notices for the Congress party related to assessment years 2014-2015, 2015-16 and 2016-17. The authorities had ended the tax exemption available to political parties and had taxed the party for gross receipt based on a Delhi High Court order of March 2016. Now, the Congress has challenged the High Court order that gross receipt was taxable.
The assurance from the IT department comes amid the allegation of tax terrorism which the Congress party has levelled against the BJP government.
The Congress had raised the issue that the slew of tax notices issued on the eve of the Lok Sabha polls would tilt the level playing field in favour of the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP. Now, India's grand old party, the Indian National Congress, was the ruling party in India for the longest time. But for the last 10 years, it has been sitting in the opposition benches.
And of course, it's credited itself as the principal opposition party. But is it really the principal rival to the BJP, or has that status been eroded? We explore this in our next report. Take a look.
With 48 elected lawmakers, the Indian National Congress is the second largest party in the lower house of the Indian Parliament. The Congress also rules the maximum number of states after the Bharatiya Janata Party. But is that enough for the Congress to claim that it is the main opposition party in the country? This is what the numbers show. Out of 543 seats in the Lok Sabha, the Congress controls just 48. That is less than 10% of the total seats. The ruling BJP boasts 290 members at present. At number 3, we have the DMK with 24 seats, all from Tamil Nadu, just 24 behind the Congress. Followed by the Trinamool Congress with 22 seats. Again, all the elected representatives of the TMC are from the state of West Bengal. What does that tell us? The number of lawmakers from strong regional parties are only a handful less than the Congress. However, the regional parties are a force to reckon with in their respective states. Ahead of the upcoming general elections, Congress, along with other regional and smaller parties, came together to form the Indian National Developmental and Inclusive Alliance, or India in short. Given the presence of strong regional parties in the bloc, it came as no surprise when Congress made peace with acting as a junior partner in some states. For instance, in the state of Bihar, Congress is contesting on just 9 out of 40 seats, while the dominant state party, the RJD, is contesting on 26. Similarly, in Uttar Pradesh as well, out of the 80 seats in total, the Congress is not expected to contest on more than 15 seats. Here, the dominant Samajwadi Party is getting the lion's share of seats. The story in Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra is no different. But in states like Punjab and West Bengal, the dominant parties did not allow even a single seat for the Congress. The Grand Old Party is now contesting alone in these states. Coming back to our initial question, is the Congress the main opposition party in India? Well, the answer is still yes. Because in other states like Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Karnataka, the Congress is the main rival to the BJP. The regional parties are not major players. But let's not forget that these states are strongholds of the BJP. And the Congress may not get significant numbers, even if it contests alone on all seats in these states. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
All right, let's take a look at what's happening in the world of technology now. According to reports, a cyber attack has jolted Russia's prison system. A group of hackers breached the Russian prison system's database.
Well, and this was in retaliation for the death of opposition leader Alexei Navalny. According to CNN, hackers of mixed nationalities, including Russian expatriates and Ukrainians, gained access to a computer network linked to Russia's prisons.
Now, the activists stole a database with information on thousands of prisoners and their contacts. Reportedly, the leak includes the details of prisoners from the Arctic penal colony. That was where Navalny died on the 16th of February. The compromised website displayed a message that said, "Long live Alexei Navalny," alongside a picture of him and his wife at a political rally. Allegedly, the hackers hope to garner help in understanding what happened to Navalny by sharing the hacked data, which contains phone numbers and email addresses of prisoners and their families.
The hackers also altered prices on the prison system's online marketplace, slashing them to 1 ruble or $0.01 for items like noodles and canned beef. A message in Russian on one of the prison shop websites, and I quote here, "We IT specialists left today's Russia. We love our country and will return when it is free from the Putin regime. And we'll go till the end on this path."
The death of Navalny, who was a vocal critic of Russian government, remains a contentious issue. While the United States has held Russian President Vladimir Putin responsible for Navalny's death, the Russian government maintains that it was due to natural causes.
These developments, including the breach and data leak, could complicate matters further. Internationally, the US and others' reaction could strain relations, particularly considering former President Trump's insinuation of a link between Putin and Navalny's demise. Is the US organ transplant program racist? Well, the question arises because the US organ transplant program has announced that they're stopping the use of race-based algorithm.
Well, they believe the program caused black people's kidney transplants to be delayed for years. Now, this is Jasmine Evans. Evans has been waiting for a new kidney for 4 years now. She should have been added to the transplant list in 2015. Evans is one of the 14,000 black kidney transplant candidates who've been waiting for their name to be added to the list. Out of the nearly 89,000 people currently waiting on the wait list for a new kidney, 30% of them are black.
Fridays, so these are like the busy days. But it's a little jarring when you just open up your mail one day and it says, "Hey, we acknowledge that the GFR scores has this racial aspect to it, and we're working to rectify that thing." And because we are working to do that, at this point, you get 3.5 years accrued time. And I remember just like reading that letter over and over again, and I was like, what's going on here? Like, has anybody else heard about this? I never knew.
So what caused the algorithm to racially discriminate against African Americans? Estimated glomerular filtration rate, commonly known as EGFR, evaluates kidney health based on how quickly a waste compound called creatinine gets filtered from blood. Now, this automated test overestimated how well black people's kidneys were functioning, and it made their blood report look healthier than they really were. The US organ transplant program is now moving these patients up in the transplant list, giving them credit for the lost time.
Your blood pressure right now.
All right, moving on to all the updates now from the world of business, where foreign investors are flooding the South Korean equity markets.
And this surge, largely driven by bets on artificial intelligence, has propelled Kospi's foreign ownership to a record high. Take a look at this next report for more details on this.
South Korean stocks are seeing a surge in foreign investment, driven by excitement around artificial intelligence. In the first quarter of 2024, overseas investors poured a record $12.2 billion into local shares. The surge is fueled by optimism in the Korean tech sector, particularly chip makers like Samsung and SK Hynix, which are seen as key players in the global AI supply chain. This AI boom has propelled foreign ownership of Kospi, South Korea's benchmark stock index, to a new high of 34.42%. This is the highest level since 2021 and reflects growing confidence from international investors. Analysts at Goldman Sachs Group highlighted the potential for further inflows, noting that despite the recent surge, foreign ownership of Korean equities remain relatively light. This optimism stems from the country's recovery trajectory after experiencing a $50 billion investment exodus between 2020 and 2022. While the recent rally might lead to some profit-taking in the short term, the long-term outlook for Korean stocks remains positive. The AI trend is expected to persist, and chip makers like SK Hynix are projecting continued momentum in AI memory sales well into 2025. This optimism from the tech sector is likely to continue attracting foreign investment throughout the year. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
US factory data surprised everyone and expanded for the first time since 2022.
And this was all thanks to a surge in output and an increase in new orders. The ISM manufacturing index shocked everyone by entering growth territory, halting 16 straight months of contraction. And in addition, climbing input costs suggest a revival in inflationary pressures as well.
Now, markets interpreted that as a catalyst for reduced chances of meaningful Fed rate cuts in this cycle. Nevertheless, construction was far weaker, and more importantly, signs of mounting inflationary pressures are on the rise. But many more employment figures are due this week, which will show a clearer Fed rate path picture. For now, bets the Fed will ease rates in June is down to below 50%. Before the data, bond dealers were penciling in a 60% chance.
The February ISM manufacturing index climbed above the break-even 50 threshold for the first time since September 2022, and this shows a robust economy that does not need policy raising. However, there are several Fed speeches scheduled for this week. The market is pricing in the possibility that policymakers may be hesitant to commit any substantial policy easing.
The data-dependent Fed is not making much headway in this regard. Now, it appears that comparing the data from the first quarter of 2024 with the second half of last year shows that the economy is going in the opposite direction to the need of prospective rate cuts. Fed Chair Powell said he would wait for further evidence before changing the rate cut predictions for 2024. Traders set the probability of a first move in June to less than 50% and priced in less easing by the Fed this year than what the dot plots show.